Most Canadians think that government pensions like the CPP and OAS are guaranteed, but for immigrants that couldn't be farther from the truth. You'll find out how something as simple as when you move to Canada or where you retired can change your government payouts forever. I was born in Canada, but my parents were immigrants, so I had to figure all this out early in life to help them out. It's also an issue I've seen come up time and time again with my financial planning clients. And don't worry, because near the end, I'll show you exactly what immigrants can do to avoid losing out and still build a strong retirement plan. OAS depends on time in Canada. Let's break down how the old age security or the OAS works. Because it's not automatic, and many people are surprised to find out that they don't qualify for the full amount or even none at all. Unlike CPP, which is based on your work and contributions, OAS is entirely based on residency in Canada after the age of 18. So here are the 3 key numbers you need to know. 10 years in Canada after the age of 18. Now this is the bare minimum to receive any OAS at all. Then you have 40 years, and that's what you need to qualify for the full OAS payment. Then you have 20 years, and this is key for immigrants because if you plan to retire back home or abroad, you must have lived in Canada for at least 20 years after the age of 18 to continue receiving OAS outside the country. Now here's where it gets tricky. Let's say you immigrated to Canada at age 50 and retire at 65. That's only 15 years of residency after age 18. You'd receive just 15 out of 40 years of payments for OAS, which is about 37.5% of the full OAS amount. The other big risk is if you do decide to move back to your home country, you wouldn't meet the 20-year minimum, which means you could lose OAS altogether once you leave, depending on which country you go to. Now let's talk about social security agreements. Canada has international social security agreements with many countries, including the US, UK, Australia, several Asian countries, and many EU nations. These agreements can help you qualify for OAS even if you haven't spent the full time in Canada. So for example, if you lived in Canada for 7 years and in the UK for 13 years, you might still qualify for OAS under the Canada-UK agreement. And these agreements allow Canada to count your time in certain other countries toward your 10 or 20-year residency minimums, but it's a key point here, not towards the full 40 years required for the full 100% OAS. So you'll likely just receive partial OAS anyways. So yes, where you've lived matters, and what country you retire in matters even more probably. So if you've immigrated later in life in Canada or are planning to retire abroad, you could be leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table if you're not careful. Next up, CPP. Now let's talk about the CPP, otherwise known as the Canada Pension Plan. Unlike OAS, CPP has nothing to do with how long you've lived in Canada. It's based entirely on how much and how long you've worked and contributed. So you could have lived in Canada for 40 years but never worked, and then you wouldn't get CPP. So to receive the maximum CPP, you need about 39 years of maximum contributions between the age of 18 and 65. And that's pretty hard to hit, especially for immigrants who arrive later in life. So here are the key reasons why many immigrants receive less CPP. First of all, many of them have a late arrival. If you move to Canada at, say, age 45 and retire at age 65, you only have 20 working years, which is not enough to hit that 39-year mark. And then you have career transitions. Many immigrants go back to school, start over in lower paying jobs, or run businesses that don't always contribute to CPP. Then there's contribution gaps. Periods of unemployment or part-time work also reduce your average. CPP uses your best 39 years of contributions to calculate your benefit. You could drop about 8 years of low or no income thanks to the general dropout provision, but that still leaves 31 years that count. If you don't have those, your CPP payout shrinks even if you earned a high income during your working years. So here's a quick comparison of 2 people. One that starts CPP at age 65, who's a Canadian-born worker. They could expect maybe around $10,000 to $15,000 per year. Then you have the immigrant who arrived at age 45. They might be in the more of like the $3,000 to $6,000 range. So even if you qualify, your CPP might be tiny if you didn't work in Canada long enough. So while CPP can be a solid foundation for retirement, immigrants who start working in Canada later often receive far less, and that could come as a surprise if you're not planning ahead. Now let's talk about GIS. For many low-income seniors, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, or the GIS, is a lifeline. It could add up to $13,000 approximately per year, tax-free, on top of your OAS. But here's what a lot of immigrants don't realize. GIS is only paid while you're living in Canada. And if you leave the country for more than 6 consecutive months, your GIS gets cut off. even if your income stays low enough and you continue filing Canadian taxes. This hits immigrants especially hard because many plan to retire abroad, back home, or in a more affordable country. But if GIS is part of your income, that move could cost you thousands of dollars per year. For example, meet Jane, a 71-year-old retiree who moved to Mexico to be closer to family and to try to stretch out her pension. Her CPP kept coming, but her GIS stopped after 6 months. She had no idea that leaving Canada meant losing the benefit completely. And there's no workaround and there's no international agreement or any tax treaty which will protect your GIS in this situation. It's strictly tied to living in Canada. And here's a pro tip: some retirees use a snowbird strategy, which is staying in Canada for at least 183 days a year to keep their benefits like GIS and healthcare, and spending the other time in, say, somewhere like Florida or Mexico or wherever. It's not for everyone, but it can work if you plan ahead. So if you're an immigrant thinking of retiring abroad, you'll need a backup plan. The GIS won't follow you. And if you're really serious about moving abroad, your net worth is key to your financial freedom and a smooth transition overseas. If you haven't started tracking it yet, grab my free net worth tracker. It'll help you stay organized and plan for your new life abroad. You can download it for free on my website. Check it out. So here's what's at stake and why it matters so much. Your CPP and OAS are extremely valuable, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially over your lifetime. When you start CPP as well makes a huge difference, and OAS. You can see here in this table how big of an effect it has. The average Canadian starting CPP at age 65 receives around $9,696 per year. And if you max out contributions at 65, you could get up to about $17,000 per year. Now add old age security for those who qualify fully. At the ages 65 to 74, it's about almost close to $9,000. And over a 25-year retirement, that adds up to between $460,000 and $648,000. That's assuming you get max OAS. So that's huge. But these numbers don't even include inflation. Those are today's numbers. Your CPP and OAS are inflation indexed, meaning they will increase with inflation. And with just adding on 2% annual increases, index benefits could grow significantly. Now you'd be looking at about $580,000 to $815,000, which is the actual dollar amount that you probably would receive. That's $100,000 to $170,000 more just by factoring in modest inflation adjustments. So even without savings or a pension, your government benefits could be worth over $800,000. But here's the catch: if you immigrate to Canada later in life or retire abroad, you might only receive a fraction of that or even lose your OAS entirely. And that's a massive difference in retirement income, which brings us to the next key question: what immigrants can do to protect themselves. Even if you won't qualify for the full CPP, OAS, or GIS, there are still powerful moves you can make. The first one is to delay CPP and OAS, if you can. This is the easiest way to boost your monthly payments. If you delay CPP or OAS until 70, you can increase your benefit by up to 42%, and that's a huge difference over the course of retirement. It might not be right for everyone, but if you can't afford to wait, it's one of the most powerful levers you have, and it's something that we plan a lot around here at Blueprint. The next is to build your own retirement income. Don't rely only on government benefits. Focus on RSPs, TFSAs, and other personal savings. Side income can go a long way in retirement, especially if your government benefits end up being lower than expected. Next is to check for social security agreements. About 50 countries have social security agreements with Canada, which can help you qualify for partial OAS or CPP, even if you haven't lived here for the full 20 years. Countries like the UK, India, the Philippines, and many in Europe are on the list, but not all of them. So check before you make any big retirement moves. For example, if you're close to the 20-year OAS threshold for portability and plan to retire in a country without an agreement, it might make sense to delay your move for a couple years maybe. It could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra benefits over your lifetime. Next is to know the residency rules before you leave. If you're considering retiring abroad back home, make sure you understand how long you've lived in Canada and that OAS will stop if you leave for more than 6 months. And next is to plan carefully and get help if you need it. If you've moved to Canada later in life or plan to retire abroad, you're playing by a different set of rules. But with the right strategy, you could still retire comfortably and even save thousands in taxes. So here are a few smart planning moves to consider. First is to coordinate your RSP and TFSA withdrawals to reduce taxable income and try to avoid something like, say, the OAS clawbacks, or to plan for a delayed OAS and CPP withdrawal. You could also use income splitting with a spouse or trusted family member to lower your overall tax rate. Then you could convert RSPs to RIFs strategically so you don't get hit with forced withdrawals when you least expect it. Also, you must be mindful of foreign exchange risk and how your investment income will be taxed in another country. It's a lot to think about, and that's where we come in. At Blueprint Financial, we specialize in helping immigrants, business owners, and globally minded Canadians make the most of every dollar in retirement. Whether it's optimizing your CPP and OAS timing, reducing tax drag, or structuring your assets for cross-border living, we'll help you build a personalized plan that actually works. So visit our website to learn more, and if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more tips.